Hey everybody, it's rental car time in Alaska with Chuck and Deb, and today we're going to talk about living a life of faith in marriage from the husband's point of view.
Okay, so today I get to ask the questions.
Uh-huh.
So, in our last van time, I was describing some of the faith ventures that we had taken. What, from your perspective, are some steps of faith that we've taken?
Yeah, I think that when we got out of the Army, that was a step of faith, but we were getting out of the Army to pursue education to become a chaplain. Halfway through, the Army said, no thanks. And then we had to trust God that what He called us to do was real. That was very difficult for both Deb and I.
Can you think of another time?
Yeah, I think when we started pursuing church planting, that was way out of the box for both of us. And then, what did you say when?
When we were coming to San Antonio, Chuck would tell people, yeah, we're going to go plant churches in San Antonio. And I'm like, can you please not say that quite so loudly? That sounds really weird, you know?
The whole church planting thing kind of, that was a scary proposition for us. And then I think moving to different places in light of some dreams. And that was outside of our box as well. And both of those moves worked out exactly the way it was in the dream. So it was really cool. So those are some of the faith adventures that we've had.
Okay, so whenever you feel like God is telling you to do something, or you have a dream, or however He communicates to you, how did you help me come on board with what you felt like God was calling us to do?
Yeah, I think probably the most important thing is living a life of consistency in believing and obeying God, so that when these big moments come up, then it's not a shock to the system. Now, there are times when it's going to be a shock no matter what, right? But that proven track record of just being gentle, sensitive, communicating with Deb on what God is communicating to me, and not just doing it, make sure I bring the team up to speed. So I think that's been helpful. So.
Okay, another question is, what if in the marriage relationship the wife is the risk taker, or the wife's the one that hears from God?
Yeah, and we see that a lot, and so it's the same thing. But now, the husband is supposed to be the spiritual leader in the family, and it's very difficult for the wife now to, kind of lead the family spiritually in these acts of faith. So it's the same thing. It's communications, gentleness, sensitivity, bringing the team up to speed. It may not happen overnight. You need to be patient, but don't preach and don't nag. Deb has a great saying about nagging.
Yeah.
What is your saying?
Yeah, I say that God is a much better nag than I could ever be. So it's like whenever I feel like, there have been times where I felt like God has told me something, like moving to San Antonio. I felt like God kind of put that on my heart, and Chuck was pretty much on board, so I didn't have to do this. But if there had been resistance or whatever, I would have just petitioned to God, like, hey, this is what you said, and you got to take care of what's going on here. So now, what about single folks? Like a single guy, how would he know whether a gal's going to be able to follow him or not?
Yeah. So that's a great question, because you do want to marry somebody that is not only following Jesus, but can follow you as you lead. And so check and see, does she follow her dad? Does she follow authority figures in her life? Does she follow Jesus? That's the first place you want to start. Is she in the Word, obeying Jesus? If she's not really following anyone well, chances are she won't follow you either. And you want a suitable helpmate. And so Genesis talks about that in Genesis 2, a suitable, someone that fits with your calling and your occupation and the way that you're wired. It doesn't mean you need to be the same. It just means you need to fit together. And will she follow you? That's a biggie, in my opinion, as far as choosing a mate. All right. I hope that's helpful. If it has been, pass it on to some friends. And until next time, keep making disciples until
There's no place left.